Hey guys, Paul here again, and following up on last week's video where I turned a resin bottle stopper, this week I am trying something completely different, turning a copper and wood combined bottle stopper, and this is going to give the appearance of these copper rungs going around to hold the barrel together, but in reality this is a sandwich of wood, then copper, wood, copper, wood, copper, and so forth. So yes, that involves turning copper on a wood lathe. So if you haven't done that before, you might get a kick out of this. It's not difficult. It's a little bit slow, but on a piece this size, it's fine. So it's a lot of fun. I'll give you some color commentary as I go through. And as always, feel free to ask any questions down below, and I will do my best to get you an answer. Follow along.
I started out with a blank that was 1 3/4 inches square by about maybe a foot long or so, a lot longer than it needed to be, but it's what I had. I marked it clearly on two sides so that I had a good indication of the grain alignment, which is important as you're gluing this back together so that you get a good aesthetic grain flow. And I set the first couple cuts for 1/4 inch. I marked each one so I could keep track of the sequence, again for that grain flow. So with a stop block, going for a 1/4 inch cut on each one, and then moved the fence over so that I was making the middle cut to a 1/2 inch. And then I'll just make that one cut for the middle, and then I'm going to move the fence back to a 1/4 inch for the remaining two cuts. I'm cutting the copper, and you might wonder if you can cut copper on your bandsaw, and I just have a regular 3 tooth per inch blade on here, and this is an 1/8 inch thick slab of copper, and it's cutting it with absolutely no problem. And yes, this is a large 3-horse bandsaw, but you could definitely do this on a much smaller bandsaw. Just take your time with the cuts, and mark carefully. You don't want to have to make adjustments during the cut. I like to make a nice straight clean cut through. And I'm just cutting them to match the size of the wood pieces, 1 3/4 inch square. Just doing your best to follow the line here. It's not super critical because we're going to glue it all up in a sandwich and turn it anyway. So, but they all lined up pretty well. Then you want to scratch it. I'm using an 80 grit sandpaper here and just scratching both sides of the copper just so that it will take the glue a bit better that way. And then here I'm just sanding off the rough edges just for my handling purposes. Obviously that's all going to get turned away. And I'm going to use Gorilla Glue, so I'm wetting down the surfaces for better adhesion. Someone called me out on that in the last video, and that's true. You do want to use water. That does activate the polyurethane glue. And just putting an ample amount on each piece. You don't want to be bashful with this. And I'm going to spread it out and put together a copper and wood sandwich. I used ash. It'd probably be a little bit more authentic if you used oak for a barrel, but it came out with a pretty good look, so I was okay with that. All right, you'll notice I've got some tape on the clamp. I mean, that Gorilla Glue is just miserable stuff, and it will stick to everything. It doesn't come off as easily as your typical PVA wood glue. And just tapping here to get it out of the clamp after the glue setup. And from there, I'm just following the same sequence as I did. If you want some more kind of fundamentals on turning these bottle stoppers, check out the video I put up last week on Bottle Stopper 101. And then I'm putting in the insert. And I actually had a little bit of a mishap here. You'll see it coming up here right there. What happened was that I tore out the glue. It was a little bit too much force. The big catch that I had there with the copper, because it's a pretty harsh material to turn, so ended up gluing it, as you see, onto the end of this the rest of that spindle stock, and then holding it between centers, and it then I didn't have any further problem with it. It held together just fine. So here I'm just starting to round it out, and it was slow going. I'm using a traditional bowl gouge here at first, and it's slow going. I ended up finding better luck with the Easy Wood tool, as you see here. Here I'm using the Easy Wood negative rake scraper. I actually found that I had better luck with the Easy Wood traditional carbide disc. But it's slow going, but that copper does turn better than you might think. And it is a little bit hot coming off of there. You may want to wear gloves for this. I don't normally advocate wearing gloves when you're turning, but this would be one situation where you might want to do it. Definitely wear a face shield with this, because you don't want those little shards of metal flying up into your eye. What I found was that it paid off to spend more time on the copper rungs and then just hit a light pass, because the copper turns so much slower than the wood. So just kind of back and forth on the copper area, and then I'm just trying to form a nice barrel shape here. And I'm just taking everything down as evenly as I can, eyeballing it, trying to form a nice barrel shape. Then I pull out a 1/4 inch traditional parting tool, and I'm just adding a little bit of a relief, maybe not quite an 1/8 inch of a recess near each of the rungs, to give it the appearance that they're sitting proud, or that they're sitting on top of the wood. So just going in between each one, just kind of trying to keep that reveal as even as possible. And then I'm sanding it, I'm wet sanding it. What I didn't show there, I missed a little bit of footage, but I was actually shaping those to soften the edges a little bit as well with that parting tool, to soften the edges of the copper. Now I'm applying a Mylan's friction polish, and I'm going to turn it up pretty fast as I'm doing that, just to develop the heat so that it cures the finish. Then I wanted to install a bung into the barrel, so I drilled a 1/8 inch hole and cut a short piece of a 1/8 inch copper rod, and just kind of filed it off a little bit so that it would soften up the feel to it. Took some super glue and tapped it into place.
All right, that wraps this one up. Thanks for watching. Again, ask any questions that you want down below. I'll do my best to give you an answer, and I hope you subscribe and come back. Take care now.